Hello and welcome to Campaign Preview 3. Today we've got a very special video. We're going to be taking a look at part of the economic campaign available in Stronghold Warlords at launch. Today I've got with me once again, Matt Smith. Matt, how's it going?
Hello. It's going well. It's going well.
That was a very sultry hello.
Well, there's not a lot of human contact at the moment, so I'm not used to talking to people as much.
It's true, it's true. So you've got to be as suave as possible when you jump on a call.
It's potluck, you know. If you go a day without talking to people, it could come. It could be hello, or it could be hello. You know, anything in between.
And how long
Caught
since
me
you've
on-
had a coffee as well?
Yes, yes.
So today we're looking at some flooding, aren't we? Do you want to explain the concept of flooding in Stronghold, which I'm not sure we've had before?
No, this is a new feature. The sort of idea behind it was we've had, missions with time limits. That's not new. But we wanted to give the time limit mechanic a little bit more in-game
Mm.
depth resonance. So it was more evident and physically present there
Yep.
in the game. Like, it's one thing to have a timer counting down, but here you've got a very real threat,
Yep.
a very real visible threat.
And we're also, meanwhile, raising awareness of global warming at the same time.
Exactly.
So what kind of
Yeah.
impact can people expect from the flooding? Like, can it destroy buildings? Can it, can it drown peasants?
Yeah. No, once it gets high enough, anything sort of below the waterline is in deep trouble. So that's the other aspect to it beyond sort of a regular time limit on a mission is you actually have to think about where you place your buildings.
Yep.
And maybe you want to kickstart your economy at the start of the map, and you just want to spread things out a bit, but you accounting for the fact that that land's not going to be available indefinitely.
Yep. And on this map, the water levels will sort of rise and fall during gameplay.
Yes. We've got it as part of our sort of map scenario editor. We've got quite fine control over when the floodwaters hit, and what levels they go to, and that sort of thing. From the technical point of view, it's actually separate from the existing water systems we have. So we're able to control it as its own thing, separate from everything else. Sorry, I don't know, the grammar wasn't quite right there, but
But will you get any kind of warning about? Because I saw there was some rain towards the start of this. Was that kind of designed as a visual tell that you might get some floodwaters coming up?
Yes, and again, even though it's separate, it's another aspect of the tools we have in our map editor that you can say, okay, well, from this point to this point, I want to change the weather. And that could be done as a purely visual thing. So what we tend to do is have a visual aspect of the rain going hand in hand with the flooding. And like you say, it's a visual tell. You can definitely see, it becomes a bit gloomy and you can see the rain coming down, and maybe some of the ground will start to look a little waterlogged. So you've got that warning. We actually also then have thunderstorms as part of our event system.
Cool.
Which players,
which you're seeing right now with the tiger attack.
So yes, that icon in the bottom right there, it means that some tigers are on the prowl, and they're pretty fearsome.
I have noticed as well, actually, that the tiger's health bar is starting to pulse. Is that kind of a quality of life change made? Is that for their special attack? Their kind of like their charge, or
yeah. This is actually something I worked on quite recently. We have units in the game that have special abilities special attacks, buffs, that sort of thing.
Mm.
And previously we'd done it through a system of icons on the health bar, and myself and others weren't entirely happy with the look of them,
Mm.
because the trick is trying to present information in a way that's accessible but doesn't clutter up the screen.
Yeah.
So the solution we came up with was to have, in this instance, the pulsing of the health bar. So that shows that the tiger's sort of pounce ability is available
Yeah.
to it.
And will that
You'll
apply to
see
your
this.
troops as well if you've got like troops with special active
Mhm,
abilities?
mhm. Yes, I can't remember what troops we've given details on already, but there are a few that have special attacks. We've got some, AOE type attacks in
Yeah.
there. Those who played Crusader 2, we had the Whirling Dervish. Similar. We've had some tweaks, but loosely similar in how it operates. Very loosely in terms of it's an ability on a cooldown, and when you see that glint on the health bar, that means that the ability is ready, and you'll see that on your troops, and you will generally see it on other troops, enemy troops, so you can plan accordingly.
Yeah.
And that's worked quite nicely.
Because we're
Looking at
trying to
some
do that kind
other
of, we're trying to
similar.
kind of, unclutter the UI pretty much
Mhm,
across the
mhm.
board, right? So in this demo, you can see that we've shrunk down the UI a little bit, and UI scaling will be something that we have as an option in the game for players, because we know that just because you play at a certain resolution doesn't mean you want the UI necessarily at a certain size.
Yes, yeah. It's nice to be able to separate those two things out and give players the control. And we've been going through sort of finalizing what options players are going to have. And we're quite pleased with the amount of control that players are going to have over the look and feel
Yeah.
of, in this case, the UI. And the scale of it, and if you want to have as much sort of screen real estate for what's in world as possible, you can shrink it down.
Yeah.
Or if you want everything to be big and bold on the UI, you can go the
Yeah.
other
Well,
way.
I'd
And
completely forgotten the other day that, so for instance, on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the objectives, right? So, for those that don't know, an economic mission, all the goals are economic. You might have some threats from sort of, a small number of bandits, or in this case, tigers. But in this mission, we have to collect 1,000 T, build a grand temple, reach a population of 60, build a couple of embassies, and collect 500 meat, all the while, fighting against floodwaters and the time limit. And the other fail situation would be getting your lord eaten by tigers, which would be impressive because your lord's quite high up. But I completely forgot until recently that you can just tap those objective icons and move them away. So yeah, we're hoping we can, you can occupy as much or as little of the game screen as possible, as much as you want with the UI versus actual sort of gameplay view.
yeah, I mean, we'd had debate internally about how much information to present. Some people felt there's no such thing as too much, and other people wanted the absolute bare minimum. And in the end, we thought, well, let's give players the choice
Yeah,
wherever we can.
I'm definitely of the latter camp, but obviously, like that kind of philosophy only works for certain types of games, right? Like it's much easier to have a super minimalist UI in a third-person action game than it is in a real-time strategy game.
Yes, yes. There is a lot of information to convey in one form or another.
Speaking of which, we can see the market auto buy and auto sell there, very very briefly.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's another
that's
returning feature that, yeah, I always like to plug Stronghold Legends, but I'm pretty sure that was the first game that featured it, and it was kind of like something that was just added, not as part of the original design, but ended up being a fan favorite.
yeah, yeah.
So does, sorry, just to cut you off,
that.
does the rain here that we're looking at now mean that we're expecting a flood?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay.
It's sort of light rain at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's when the it's when the Well, if I remember rightly, you'll see something a little bit more dramatic later on in the mission. So,
This is like a light London rain that you might expect
yes, yeah.
on a dreary Tuesday.
Well, yeah.
Oh no, there it goes. It's starting
Being
to fill.
from yes, there we are. Yes.
Ah, the peasants died. Oh, poor guys.
Yeah. There's yes, I fear for those houses.
So buildings and peasants can be destroyed. So you essentially you might do like a risk reward thing, I guess, if you want to build housing and economy buildings at the lower level, and then maybe delete them when you know that the floods are coming.
I'm sure players who are much better at the games than I am will be able to figure out clever strategies around that.
A good example being Dave, who's playing it for us at the moment, our producer and QA lead.
Yes, bit of multiplayer testing going on at the moment, and I don't tend to fare well whenever actual skill is involved.
You're more fodder for the other people testing it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, contribute in my own way.
Exactly.
But yes, you can see the rain stopped. The floods have subsided for now? Question mark. But it definitely sort of conveys the threat.
Yeah. And it gives kind of more purpose as well, I guess, to being able to rebuild and delete buildings and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Instead of it just being like deleting buildings, something you do when you're up against it and you're about to lose, and you go, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna delete everything and hope for the best.
Yeah, and it's one thing we've tried to change with this game is giving more places or more opportunities for players to really think about and make use of their space. Some RTSs, and to an extent some of our older games, you'd have a fairly standard way of laying things out. So we're trying to spice things up a little bit in that regard.
Yeah. I can see water pots being placed now. I guess even with the rains, there's always a chance of fire.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's just that because Dave seems to have this mission generally in the bag at this point. So I guess he's just trying to, protect against all possible eventualities.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with health and safety.
Yeah. You can collect some rainwater in there as well. High alkaline content.
Yep.
I can see that they've built the Grand Temple as well, so that's that objective completed. I think briefly when the temple was placed as well, you got a quick look at the radius of that.
Yes, and again, it comes back to what I was saying before: is trying to get the information on the screen in a way that's. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, he looks like he's a little bit. I can't tell. Is he short on peasants, or is he? You can see the Zeds coming off the water pot there.
I think he's just turned them off because he's like, I don't need them right now. Which is the again an advanced strat.
I was going to say saving them for a rainy day, but I think that's a poor choice of phrasing. Context.
Well, I think you said deep trouble earlier, so that's definitely a worse pun.
Yeah. But I just wanted to go back to the temple for a second. Eagle-eyed players might notice they now have the sort of priest that spawns when you place them, and he'll potter around your village, speaking to people, blessing buildings and stuff. I have you to thank for teaching me the term Voozle factor.
Well, I'm pretty sure this was a player suggestion, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah,
it might have been a mix of something we'd already intended and something people were asking for, but I'm fairly certain.
I'm pretty sure there's
it
been
might
a
even
few
been
things like that.
Yeah.
Where, we've seen, watching the Discord, and someone says something, and you think, oh, actually, yes, that would actually be quite straightforward to add, and would definitely add something to the game. And yeah, that was one of them, and you'll see something similar with a few of the town buildings. Is the category we use. So rather than say a production building, so embassies, sort of good lord, bad lord buildings. You'll see people pottering around, going about their business, and it really helps it to feel like a living, breathing village.
I've actually noticed that other companies have started to use the term. I mean, the term isn't new, but I have noticed that certain other developers and publishers have started to talk about Voozle factor, which didn't happen until we were talking about it.
There
So,
you go.
just saying
Once
we're
again,
trend.
you're a trendsetter.
We Matt, we are as collectively as the developer, we are trendsetters. But yes, I
I'm
do like
still
saying
not
it.
sure whether it's spelt with a C or a K, though.
I'm
I'll have
pretty
to
sure
look
it's a
that up.
K.
Yeah,
I mean,
feels like it should be.
we could just ask our German community manager.
Yeah.
But yes, Voozle factor is. I just like saying it as well. It's just quite satisfying to say in a video, Voozle
Believe me,
factor.
Nick, I'm aware of how much you enjoy this word. Believe me.
Well, I've just like to shorten it to Voozle now. Internally now, I'll just
Really?
say it needs more Voozle. Yeah, I was saying this to someone on the project yesterday. We were like, oh, this part could do with a bit more Voozle.
Nice. It'll just keep getting shortened until it's just W.
We're just going to slowly turn into a German company. One day you'll wake up and you'll realise we're based in Hamburg. I do like the new blue flowers and the vegetation.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of
We've had
some
a
of the
few
vegetation we've
passes of
added.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so they've gone through a few iterations, um, and managed to get those hooked up. So they sort of, depending on the weather, they'll move around a bit. So
Oh, cool. I've definitely seen that with the trees.
yes, yeah, and we had a little bit of that in the previous game, but we went through and actually stitched the code for handling the weather and the events, stitched that into the code for handling the vegetation, and
Cool.
so it all helps to sort of again reinforce this thing of this is something happening in the world,
Yeah.
rather than a more abstract
Yeah.
feature.
It's nice when things come together like that. I know the last sort of 10% of every game project is really tough work, but it is satisfying at the same time
Yes, yeah,
when all the pieces start to slot into place.
yeah, and especially you spot the opportunities to do it, and
Yeah.
so you maybe weren't necessarily planning to do that, to add that bit of polish, but you've got two components that are working nicely, and you see, oh yeah, I can just point that thing at that thing, and they'll all play well together, and again keep coming back to it, but add this sense of a real complete world.
Which is kind of like the prerequisite for making a, because the game's quite simulation based. It's obviously an RTS. At least half of it is an RTS, but there's a massive simulation component.
Yeah, well, I mean this is the economic campaign.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure when we were listed on the Gamescom website, we were actually listed under simulation. So
Okay.
our colleagues at Gamescom clearly believe that we are, the sim game as much as we are the RTS.
I mean, I'm definitely more of a sim player than an RTS player, in terms of my personal background in gaming.
I definitely used to be the complete opposite, but I've come around. Like I love, I think it was Legends again, but Legends had an economic war mode, which I was a big fan of. So here we go, the lightning storm.
Yeah, sorry, I
There
didn't
you
mean to cut you off there, but
it's all right.
yeah,
Something that you worked on that you're proud of.
yes. This was myself and Andreas put this together. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with it. We've got in particular the effect for sort of making the ground look a bit boggy, a little bit waterlogged. I'll spare all the technical details of how I achieved that, but yes, a little bit of minor wizardry to get that working, and the lightning. I mean, we had the lightning in the previous game, but we just sort of had the lightning bolts
Yeah.
coming down as standalone things. But again, I'm repeating myself a bit, but you could see the flashes of lightning there, the sort of the flashes illuminating the ground.
Yeah.
This was something I added, and these sort of momentary light sources in various places in the sky.
It's really cool.
So again, once again, it's something that's happening in the world, and it all ties together.
Yeah.
But yes, along with all that rain
Yeah.
comes a lot more water.
Wonderful. And on that note, I think Dave's pretty much completed this mission, so I think we'll wrap up. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me today. I
Always a pleasure.
hope you enjoyed it and everyone enjoyed watching the video.